In the UK, a lot of people buy their cars for the sake of status. Cars that look expensive make people feel happier for whatever reason. Personally, I think if you're buying a car, you should buy it because you really like it, but that's just my opinion. And to be fair, for under £20,000, you can get some cars that look a lot more expensive, so we're going to look at 10 of them in this video. Don't forget to hit like if you enjoy this kind of content. Let's try and get 1,000 likes on this video, do the same video again under maybe £10,000 instead. Subscribe as well if you're new here for 2 videos every single week. Without further ado, let's get into the video. In the UK, there is one car that basically sets the standard for rich people cars across every generation. I mean, I literally work in financial services, and through crude guesswork, I would reckon at least 70% of the senior people that I speak to have one of these. I'm talking, of course, about the Range Rover, and for less than £20,000, specifically the 4th generation model, which comes with a 3-litre turbo diesel V6 that makes 254 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 7.4 seconds, but of course, performance isn't really the focus of a Range. Instead, the focus is on feeling luxurious inside and looking expensive outside, and I think the 4th generation is the current sweet spot in terms of looking modern enough to fool people into thinking it's mad expensive, but also being cheap enough to buy, considering these start at around £18,000, with 20 grand just about getting you into a 2014 example with around 100,000 miles on it. It's visibly smoother and more curvaceous with its looks, which helps to give a more modern vibe, and when that's matched with the level of luxury you get on the interior, plus the insane size of the thing being 5 meters in length and almost 2 meters high, it absolutely commands the road. Having been in one, I'll note they are also incredibly good off-road, but I'm not sure how much the owners of these will actually use that capability. Crankshaft bearing issues are the main thing to look out for on these, but reliability generally isn't known to be very good, so buy at your own risk, as it won't look as expensive stuck on your driveway. The other day I was walking around my local area and spotted a 2014 Audi A7 S-Line in Nardo Grey with black alloys, and though that may be one of the most standard specs ever, it still looked pretty sick. It could have had any engine in it and it still would have looked relatively expensive, but for £20,000 you'll easily get the 3-litre turbo diesel V6, which makes 214 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 7.1 seconds, which is pretty base spec and not even all-wheel drive. It's a beautiful design and was actually imagined by the same man that drew the stunning Quattro Spider that I spoke about in a recent video. It's effectively an A6 but with a sportback shape, and you'll find basically everything up to the end of the front doors is an A6, including the interior. If you're after one that looks expensive, go newer, as they had a facelift in 2014 that provided both more technology and more up-to-date Audi design language. They're listed from around the £8,000 mark in the less expensive looking pre-facelift specs, making it one of the cheapest cars on the list, but for £20,000 you get a 2016 model with around 50,000 miles on it. Major common problems are much rarer than the Range Rover, but there are known issues with build quality worth reading up about on forums, including jerky transmission and multiple electrical failures. The Bentley Continental GT and Flying Spur are both obvious suggestions for this price range, but I think more non-car people know that they're not actually that expensive nowadays. But I still wanted a cheap Bentley on this list that people might not realise isn't more reasonably priced, the Arnage. Put a private plate on one so no one knows the year, keep it clean and tidy, and that design could come from basically any era. It comes with a 6.8 litre twin turbocharged V8 that puts out 400 brake horsepower, wafting it to 60 in 6.1 seconds. The story behind this car's existence is fraught with troubles, with it being designed by Vickers alongside the Rolls-Royce Silver Seraph sister car, before BMW and VW took over Rolls-Royce and Bentley respectively, with BMW then threatening to take engines away from VW, leading to lower sales of the Bentley, but then VW swapping engines and all sorts of other nonsenses. But the actual car itself is a timeless design, and in the right spec, particularly a red label example, to me looks exactly how you would expect a luxury car to look, though the interior definitely dates the car a little bit. £14,000 a minute you'll find these listed for, and for £20,000 you'll be looking at a 2000 example with around 45,000 miles on the clock. Reliability genuinely isn't a major concern on these, but repairs can of course be expensive if they do go wrong. The Mercedes S-Class is absolutely a luxury car, and it looks quite expensive too, but as it's the flagship Mercedes model, getting a more modern example which looks properly expensive can be quite tough within our price range. For me, that's where the CLS comes in, which you can get the 2nd generation of within our price range, looking pretty modern and pretty expensive. The key thing about it is that it's not really the most practical or typical body shape, which makes it look that bit more exotic and gets it a place on this list. It comes with a 3-litre turbo diesel V6 in 350D spec, which makes 261 brake horsepower and will do 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. I've actually driven the C350D with the same engine, and with the remap it can actually be very punchy too. It doesn't just come as that slick 4-door coupe body shape, it comes in the arguably even cooler shooting brake shape, which I would personally have out of the two. I would aim for a post 2014 model irrespective of what shape you go for, as the facelift was pretty spectacular both inside and out, and they look very fresh, at least to my eyes. Pre-facelift models will go for around £7,000, over £20,000 you get a 2016 model with around 50,000 miles on the clock in a nice spec too. Generally it's not a bad car on reliability either, though some 250 CDIs had problems with injectors and infotainment systems have been known to go wrong. Instead, the interior build quality has been questioned, as though it looks amazing. Some owners have complained about the materials being cheap. There are plenty of expensive looking Jags, with the XJ being the flagship luxury car from the brand has to take the crown, being so huge and having so much road presence. Honestly, in the right spec these look money with their 3-litre turbo diesel V6 engine, and I promise this is the last one in the list, which puts out 295 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.9 seconds. Not bad at all for a car this big. This is actually the final XJ generation, and thus far it doesn't really have a successor, so in terms of luxury Jags it's kind of the pinnacle. If you're not already sold on it looking expensive, it was luxurious enough to get revealed at both the Saatchi Gallery in London and Pebble Beach in the US, two particularly special events full of rich people. It's another Ian Callum design, and if you happen to be a VIP you can get a Sentinel high security model which provides protection against explosives and bullets, which is pretty insane. Older models go for around the £7,000 mark, and for £20,000 you get a 2016 model with around 70,000 miles on it. DPF filters are known to go wrong, as are the electricals, but from what I can see on forums there seems to be a significant split between those who have had great reliability and those who've bought lemons. A quick reminder that if this video gets to 1,000 likes, I'll make the same video again under £10,000 instead, so do hit like. And in the comments down below, by the time you get to the end of this video, please let me know which of these 10 cars you would go for if you were going for any of them. Mine comes later in this video. Alfa Romeos can go either way. As a major fan of them myself, I'm more than happy to admit that. Some look cheap and nasty, some look absolutely stunning like the Alfa 4C I'm currently saving for, so please do hit the like button to support me on that journey. But either way, the Giulia, particularly in Veloce spec, is a properly nice looking car, which I think errs on the side of looking expensive, particularly on the exterior. It comes with a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 which reduces 276 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.5 seconds, which is pretty good for a non-QV car. I had to include some Italian cars on this list to get that beautiful, classy styling, and I think the Giulia sets you apart from its competitors like the 3 Series and C-Class, which are a little bit more run-of-the-mill both in terms of rarity and looks. The interior is lovely too, one of the better designed interiors on the list, though some have complained again about material quality in there. All in though, it's a stunning looking car which in the right spec looks way more expensive than you'll end up paying for it. For a Veloce, the lowest you'll be paying is around £17,000, and 20 grand will get you into a 2017 model with around 40,000 miles on the clock, the lowest on this list. It has got one common problem with the battery being unreliable and causing further issues down the line, and there's a really helpful list on the Giulia forums of all the technical gremlins that can come up if you're serious. The next 4 cars on this list are certifiably some of the most expensive looking cars for the money, and the Maserati Granturismo might even be the most expensive looking, given it's also one of the most rapidly depreciated cars of all time. For £20,000 you'll get yourself a 2008 model with around 60,000 miles on it, but they do start at around the £17,000 mark, and wait until you hear the specs, as you're really getting a lot of car for your money. A 4.2 litre Ferrari V8 to be exact, which puts out 399 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, so maybe not as quick as it looks, but who doesn't want a Ferrari engine for under £20,000? It's a Pininfarina design too, so you're getting a Ferrari engine with a Pininfarina design within the price range of this video, just with a less prestigious badge attached. If you're not a badge snob, why not give the Gran Turismo a go? The designer at Pininfarina was also responsible for the 599, which is pretty mental, and I think if you squint and look at the car from a long distance, it's not a million miles away from that 599 aesthetically. The key weak spots are the clutch, suspension, brakes and electricals, and repair costs are pretty brutal if something goes wrong, but potentially not as bad as you'd expect for a Ferrari engined car. Arguably the most prestigious badge on this list, which people just expect to be expensive, is Aston Martin. That's even with the DB7 effectively being a rebadged Jaguar project designed by Ian Callum. But it does have an Aston Martin badge and does look close to a modern Aston Martin, and has a mental 5.9 litre V12 engine that makes 435 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.8 seconds, which is pretty good for such an old car. It is of course a Grand Tourer, but that badge helps it to feel so much more exotic than that, despite the the fact that it was meant to be the successor to the Jag XJS originally. It borrows a bunch of parts from cheaper cars as well, including the interior door handles, which you'll also find in my MX-5. But ignoring the hodgepodge of parts, it's a very pretty car and quite rare too, with fewer than 700 standard examples on the roads. What's so crazy, though this is actually the cheapest Aston Martin you can buy, it's also one of the most expensive, with the Zagato coming in at well over £200,000. I mean, look at this one for £300,000, it's unbelievable. £15,000 will get you into one of these, either V12 or inline 6, and £20,000 will get you a V12 from 2000 with around 70,000 miles on it. There are 4 main common problems with the DB7: water leaks, cracking exhaust manifolds, vibration at the rear, and steering issues. As I get older, Porsches get more and more enticing, and for the money, the 997 Carrera 2S is one of the best offerings on the market in my opinion. A naturally aspirated, visceral Porsche experience with many of the modern luxuries that you want out of a car today, particularly with PCCM, as well as the old school Porsche feeling. This is honestly a potential option for my next car. But less about me and more about the 997. It comes with a 3.8 litre flat 6, which reduces 350 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in a very reasonable time of 4.6 seconds. After the controversial 996 generation, which is now actually one of my favourites, the 997 restored some order to the Porsche lineage, with the typical circular headlights and a far more modern look overall. The Carrera 2S is a pretty lovely spec with the upgraded brakes, slightly larger engine, and more focused overall package, and though it's not quite as desirable as the C4S, it's definitely enough to fool people into thinking you drive an expensive Porsche. £18,000 the minimum you'll need to spend to get into one of these, and for £20,000 you get yourself a 2007 model with around 90,000 miles on the clock. Radiators are known to get damaged easily on these, and the IMS bearing on the earliest examples had issues too. Bore scoring is another potential problem, and it was most likely on the 3.8 litre examples, unfortunately. Taking the top spot thanks to it being an absolute beast is the BMW M5, which is a bit of a sleeper to those that don't know, but an executive BMW with more flary body is the best way to guess that it might be expensive for anyone that doesn't actually know. The F10 M5 comes with a 4.4 litre twin turbocharged V8 engine that produces 552 brake horsepower and will do 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. For anyone looking to go very fast under £20,000, this is the car for you, as it will also do 190 miles per hour with the driver's pack option attached, so you're a strong wind away from the magical 200 mark. And it's not just straight line speed. The F10 has done a Nürburgring time of 7 minutes 55 seconds, which is as fast as a Caterham R500 Superlight, which is literally a car built to go fast on track. If you really want one that will make people think you've got something worth cash, get some of the M performance parts, like the more aggressive exhaust, the sports wheel and pedals, plus all the carbon fibre fiddly bits you get too, which I must admit are pretty swag. These list from around £17,000, and 20k will nab you a 2012 example with 70,000 miles on it. Oil sensors are known to be sketchy, as well as brake pedals going soft. The clutch slave cylinder is also known to fail, as well as a few other key issues, often relating to the engine electronics. So that is 10 cars that look way more expensive than £20,000 but cost less than £20,000. Remember in the comments, let me know which of the 10 you'd have yourself. Massive thanks to the patrons for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. And just before you go, it'd probably be worth you watching a video now on cheap exotic cars for under £30,000 you can find up here.